I left school on Friday expecting to return on Monday, but after Sunday, my whole life was destroyed in less than one day. Water gushing, murky, bodies floating through the flood. Hurricanes can kill without the slightest drop of blood. Sewage water and sludge, watch it rising to the ceiling. Depression setting in, my mother's crying, plus I'm feeling disgusted and betrayed, but to Mike I'm telling jokes, helicopters passing my block cause it's nothing but black folks. Yet the weight the facts told is more than 1,000 pounds. Since no one cared to help my people, more than 1,000 drowned. I guess that's just their way of wiping out more than 1,000 Browns without chains, whips, knives, and more than 1,000 rounds. So in more than 1,000 towns, we weren't welcome. Politicians pointing fingers out like, nah, you help them. We started blaming from Blanco to Nagin, Bush to Brown, the whole FEMA administration, but this racial deprivation ensures that somebody hates me. Police was shooting niggas just for trying to walk to safety. I watched my whole life wash away like dog, it can't be. White neighborhoods, less than 8 inches, in my hood at least 8 feet. Maybe if we weren't depicted as goons and savages who's dumber than averages, we could fix some of the damages. But as an analyst, I watched the way they handle us, embarrass us on cameras, the system's made to damage us. The damage plus the pride that it costs. City ruined, culture destroyed, and lives that were lost. See, my eyes never thought that they would ever see the day that genocide of me would be supported heavily. Some dived in to die when police were still shooting. White people still they survive, and black people still we're looting. In Houston, we were being attacked by the students, profiled by the police, and these teachers swore we were stupid. Color lines were drawn within our mayoral races, like he's colored and he lied, so we should erase this. I'm not trying to say that all white people are racist, but I always seem to get fucked because of what my race is. Face it, if New Orleans were predominantly white, this problem would have been prevented. I'm probably right. But don't take my word for it, check history. September 1965, Hurricane Betsy.
When Hurricane Katrina broke the levees that flooded mainstream media with a narrative that did not include our communities, it eventually exposed a broken system, one where black, brown, indigenous, and low-income communities were abandoned, then blamed.
My name is Everest Robinson, born and raised in New Orleans, uptown New Orleans, Third Ward New Orleans. I was locked up. I'm on a probation hold, I get out. I end up in Jefferson Parish a couple days before Katrina, right? I can't bond out because I have a probation hold. So anytime you get arrested for anything, you can't bond out because you got a probation hold. Because I'm in Jefferson Parish and my probation is in Orleans Parish, I have to wait till you get in touch with my probation officer for him to sign the papers for me to go ahead and get out. Even though Jefferson Parish said, oh, that's a misdemeanor, let him out. So now I'm just sitting with paperwork pending. Katrina about to happen. Katrina hit. I'm in Jefferson Parish on a theft charge. Katrina hit. The next day, the third day. 3 days in jail. I don't know what's going on. We got windows this big. We got no power. No power mean you got no water. No water mean you can't flush the toilet because they all electric. You got no food. You got no water. You got nothing. I ain't gonna lie. The guards in there, they did what they could. They went downstairs and they brought up food. And you could tell every time the food came, it got less and less. It got scarce and scarce. It got to the pack point to where, you know, I'm gonna be real, people talk about community. People talk down on these dudes, man, you know what I'm saying? Katrina hit, we was in there for 3 days. By the time 3 days hit, you got dudes who ain't seen outside, don't know what it looked like. And the days after Katrina, it was bright and sunny. So don't nobody have no idea, no imagine of what's going on out with nothing. You hear me? Totally locked out from the outside world. Then fast forward to you start hearing rumbles in the jail. So you know something going on because it's quiet, nothing on. You hearing rumbles in the jail, so you know people moving. You hear chains, you hear something going on. What's going on? They come get you out of there. They come tell you we moving you. We don't know where we going. We don't know who these people are. All we know is they got different color uniforms on and they got dogs with them. They took our hands, they put us in zip ties. They put our hands thumb to thumb, just like this here. They put us on zip ties, marched us in the rooms. I was on the same bus with C. Murder when he went to Angola. I didn't even know where I was going. We got on the bus. We shackled, just like this, ankle to ankle, and we got zip ties on our arms. We're on the bus, they take the route, they go all the way up 90 up West Bank Expressway, they go all the way up 90, they go all the way past they go all the way, Luling, hop across the Luling bridge, and go that way, and I'm like, damn, what a crazy way, where we going? Like we going up 90, then we hit River Road, then we gotta go up the back way, then we coming back, I'm like, where we going? But I'm like, still like, I'm here. We here, We finally get to Angola. We get to Angola, we get off the bus. As soon as we get off the bus, them dudes in Angola had so much empathy, like the inmates, you know what I mean? And they run the kitchen, they do all that, you know what I mean? So when we got there, man, them dudes had cooked red beans with the smoked sausage. I mean, they had the fried chicken, they had the cornbread, I'm talking about, you know what I'm saying? They had it laid out. Bro, we get there, we still shackled like this. Them dudes showing us love and them dudes giving us them plates. And we got them big plates. And we just got tuberculosis shot. We just got a hepatitis C shot. And we in these jumpsuits, bro. And we got the plate. You can't even eat this plate. Say, bro, everybody had to hold the plate for the next man while he ate. We ain't ate in 3 days, bro. Everybody had to hold the plate for these dudes while they ate. And then you had to hold the plate for the next man. And then you got to think about it. We wasn't the only bus getting there. Buses coming from everywhere. Orleans Parish, Jefferson Parish, St. Charles Parish, St. Bernard Parish, LaPlace. You know what I'm saying? They just busting them in. Man, this city's small, man. If you got a problem with somebody, you probably got a problem with his cousin. You probably got a problem with his brother. You probably got a problem with, you know what I'm saying? It was hell, bro. I'm talking about riots broke out instantly, bro. I'm talking about within being there 15 minutes, we went from feeding each other like this to somebody broke out of their shackles. Fight break out, getting beat bloody while he in shackles. They come in with bear mace, they mace everybody, step on everybody, I've been there 15 minutes. I'm on a theft charge, bro. Say, bro, I ain't talked to my people till November. I'm talking about, I ain't know where nobody was till November, you hear me? You know what I'm saying? I write raps. I had a stack of raps like this. I went to my dude Cadillac from Uptown. You hear me? I told my people on Kings Uptown, you know what I'm saying? So I know pretty much everybody Uptown. Cadillac had the thing on lock, you know what I'm saying? Cadillac had the batteries, his people was already up there. So he's straight. I tell Cadillac, say, man, look, here goes some batteries, whatever I need, some envelopes and some stamps or whatever, So I write my mama address, the only address I know, on the mail. I put as many stamps as I could on it. I gave it to Mitch, the one person I could trust. I went over to talk to Cadillac. It just so happened the same dude who was talking that noise, who was popping off, happened to walk up to me. And everything that I had, every bit of rage I had, he caught it. And he went to the dentist after. And I went to the hole. He went to the infirmary, I went to the hole. God be with me, man. I'm talking about they had the biggest riot ever break out while I was in the hole. Dudes got stabbed with brooms, all type of stuff, you know what I'm saying? So if that wouldn't have happened to me, you know what I'm saying, I would have been in the mix of all that. Talk about Katrina, you know what I'm saying? The day after Christmas, they called my name. Day after Christmas, they called my name. On the 26th of December, told me I was rolling out. I got partners who was in Orleans Parish, who was on that bridge. I got partners who they left in there, who the juveniles had to break through, and the juveniles broke through and came and let them out. I know dudes that whole first floor couldn't get out. So where them dudes at? They don't know where all these missing persons, tell me that. You know what I'm saying? They talk a lot of noise about, you know what I'm saying, what's going on. Man, that system been faulty for a long time, bro. So they talking about Susan Hudson, man, Gusman was in there. I remember before him. Man, stop it. It's ridiculous. They don't care about us. If they cared about us, they'd be building schools like they've been trying to build these jails. I think it's important to preach to people that community is important. Even though I feel the way I feel because of what I went through, I feel like the most important thing in life is if you can teach someone what you know without having to go through the pains that you went through to learn it, then you're paying it forward and you're doing your part at making the world a better place. You're walking it, not talking it. People do a lot of, I don't like this, I don't like that. Well, how much of this are you doing to change? So that's why I started the nonprofit. I want to reach out to kids. I want to reach back to people under me because I understand the most functional times in my life have been when I've either been playing sports, been involved in sports, been coaching, or something related to it. I went to school, I played, even after being in Angola, after everything I told you, this dude here still walked on, played college football. Until this here come out, none of them dudes even gonna know I ever was in prison. They gonna know that they know one thing, they know hard work and the hardest worker, everything. You know what I mean? The coach, because I give back, like, that don't define you. You know what I mean? So I understand how important these roles are in the community, like influential, like make or break. It is the dividing line. As generations started growing and things happen, especially things like Katrina and different things, and you got all these different things that are affecting you as an adult. So you can't spend time worrying about, am I doing a good job as a parent? Because it's taking you so far away from that. But just like they say, it takes a village to raise a child. I feel like it was the village who failed me because of what I went through. I understood that when I was playing sports, I understood how people came together, people gave their all for a cause that was greater than them. No matter what they look like, they put themselves together, and you're only as strong as the weakest link of the chain. And I understood that. I understood what it was like to walk on and be the weakest link on the chain at playing sports. And I understood the hard work and dedication it took to be a starter, to be transferred to San Diego, to go and play semi-pro, to go and work for the New Orleans Voodoo, to, to see Marlon Favorite and be like, what's up, big Fav? Like, to rub elbows with these people, Like, that's how far removed I've come. So I know there's a way. There's never no way you could be like, oh, well, this happened to me. Man, I got papers, legal papers, this thick trying to give expungence back. I walk in the courtroom, they know me by name. You hear me? How do I find peace? I realize that I am not what I've been through. I am not yesterday. I am what I decide to be today. So every day I strive to be better than I was yesterday. I strive to be a better photographer, a better filmmaker, a better director, a better friend, you know what I mean? I realize that I've heard enough. I realize that the times when I've been most productive, I've been happy and I've kept happy people around me. So what I've strived to do is to be that happy person around everybody. I strive to, when I show up, to make sure things are going a certain way. When I walk up to set, if I see there's trash, I pick it up. If I see something need to get done, I just do it. Sometimes a lot of people around me on my team, they say, man, you're picking on too many tasks, you're doing too much, you got to spread it out. But, you know what I mean, it's just who I've become, Maybe one day, I say I need therapy, I need to be able to talk to somebody, but I find therapy in a lot of different things, and everybody has to find their own form of therapy, whether it's talking to somebody, whether it's, doing things. And when I'm behind that lens, I'm transformed, I love taking pictures, I love capturing the moment, and I love capturing people happy. A lot of my pictures, I don't really grab people and be like, hey, fake a smile for me. No, I sit on like a fly on the wall and I see you cracking up with your friend and I get that realness. And that's just, that's just my healing, I guess.
I'm from Louisiana, a state that seized an opportunity to replace plantations that harmed and killed my people during slavery with petrochemical facilities that are doing the same thing today. That as we rebuild, the ground beneath us is literally disappearing. Sea levels are rising. Hurricanes are more intense, more frequent, and more deadly. These natural disasters are not so natural. They're human-made crises fueled by fossil fuels and environmental racism. The petrochemical facilities I mentioned earlier are in an area called Cancer Alley, an 85-mile corridor stretching from Baton Rouge to New Orleans. It is lined with over 150 petrochemical plants. For Black residents living nearby, it's a death sentence. The air is toxic, the water is undrinkable, and cancer rates are some of the highest in the country. They say these facilities provide economic opportunity, but death is the real cost of Cancer Alley.
My name is Anna Wynn. I'm a born and raised New Orleanian. I grew up in Broadmoor and currently live in Mid-City. I'm really biased. I do love Jazz Fest. It's just this beautiful weekend. I'm not there to see like the top artists or, you know, have a set schedule. I actually just like to go around and like just take me wherever the mood strikes, right? Whether it's like Native American area where they're doing tribal dances, or going by to hear like an interview about the latest artist, or popping into one of the festival tents and just kind of seeing who's there and just what they have to offer. I've just seen really cool things, and every time I go to Jazz Fest, it just really reminds me of New Orleans. I remember I learned about Katrina. This is like, I guess, because I was 13, I was in library class. You go to the library, you pick out a book and things like that. And I remember my classmates saying, oh, did you hear the MTV Music Awards got canceled in Miami? And it's like, oh, really? Like, what happened? And they're like, there's a storm coming. It's like, its name is Katrina, like a hurricane's coming. So they're canceling the MTV Music Awards. And so like, that was where I was like, okay, cool. Like that's pretty big news. I mean, I was 13, so I was like, I wanted to see like Justin Timberlake and Britney Spears, and it's like, okay, cool. So I go home and I'm like, hey mom, hey dad, like, I heard a hurricane's coming, like, do we need to worry about it? They're like, oh no, it's fine, it's going to Florida. I don't know what got me to start watching the news, but I did. I just turned on the TV and just started really watching what people had to say, like the mayor and like your forecasters, and just these high-ranking officials saying things like, you have to, like, they started saying things like, you have to go, like it's going to be like 20-foot storm surge walls, you have to go, like this is a matter of life and death. And I remember asking my mom, I was like, hey, like I think we should evacuate, like the news is saying we got to go. And I remember her saying, like, no, it's just going to turn. They always turn. Like every time we leave, it's going to turn. We're just going to stay here. We got to protect everything because, like, we don't want, things to get looted. So I watched the news some more. I stay up all night watching it. And, I see Ray Nagin and, all this different just coverage of just, like, what we're going to expect in the area. And they're saying things like, it's not a drill. This is like, this is a literal emergency. Like, you have to, if you can go, you have to go. So I remember, like, begging and pleading my mom the next morning. And I was like, please, like, we have to go, we have to go. And it got to a point where, I was so persistent and annoying. She finally kind of just like tossed her hands up and she said, fine, I will send you with your aunt and uncle, and they're gonna evacuate, and I'm gonna stay behind and watch like the laundromat, watch the house. But we're like wailing, like I was just like, no, we all have to go. And eventually she got really fed up. I think it was like the day before the storm, where she finally saw coverage and it said like, there's a mandatory evacuation, like you have to leave. And we packed up the car. We had 2 Pomeranians. One was pregnant, my younger sister and 2 older brothers. There's a little bunch of us. We got on the road, and it took 20 hours to get to Houston. We didn't have a place to stay, but luckily there was a Red Cross shelter. They were taking pets, and so we ended up staying there. And yeah, at the time, I just kind of remembered like the good nature of people. Like there was all this chaos happening, and it was wild because like they had taken the time to think about like board games and books and activities for the kids to do, or like pet food and pet toys and all this different stuff. And so, the storm happened, and then still didn't have a place to go. We watched Canal Street flood on the news. And it was hard. It was hard seeing just everything you knew. We're a city that lives below sea level. We're a coastal city at the mouth of Mississippi, and so we have crumbling drainage. It was in pretty bad condition before, but today it's just worsened by extreme heat or the extreme flooding or hurricane winds and just power outages. And so there are pockets of neighborhoods in town where they still don't have sidewalks. They never had sidewalks actually, and even after Katrina they still don't have sidewalks. And to think about sidewalks is the first step, but just your basic infrastructure so you can get around town. You can walk to school or bike to school or bike to work or drive to work. Just the basics that we need to survive are just still not there. I worked in emergency management for 3 years before moving over to climate and sustainability work at the city. With Katrina, we lost a huge percentage of our trees in Sound, which, if you're like, okay, cool, you don't have a tree, it's not a big deal, but it becomes a cascading effect. We are seeing hotter summers.
I'm Megan Braden Perry, a journalist born and raised in New Orleans in the 7th Ward, to be exact. I remember being a kid and you're like, oh, you learn about these things, about exhaust and this, but you don't think about it. But now you're seeing it in real time. I can't remember how much of it's sinking, but they say we're sinking inches a year. And if we keep sinking, where we gonna go? I remember being in school and, we would do the fire drill. And that was it. We would do a fire drill because the hurricanes never came because it was Betsy was our hurricane and that was it. And that's never going to happen again. So why are we worried? And then the Maid flood in 95. But, we were all taught, the pumps, if New Orleans, if it rains too much, too long and too hard for too long, well, it's going to flood. So it's just it's going to flood. I don't know. So nobody ever thought about climate change. But we have tornadoes now. I don't know what to do for no tornado. I don't know what to do. I never had to practice. People, we used to go in the hall with our books. We never did that. I don't know what that is. I don't know how to prepare for a tornado. I know how to prepare for a flood. You move all your stuff upstairs. And I think Katrina showed us that didn't exactly work. But hey.
I'm Faretha Warren. Some people know me now as Auntie Fate. I grew up as TT. I'm from the 9th Ward, the upper 9, not the lower 9. And I also lived uptown, 7th Ward, pretty much all over New Orleans. They're putting up roads and they're doing the streets, but they're putting a Band-Aid on it. They're not doing a deep job, deep inner structure. They're not. All that piping and stuff down there is rotten. It's no good. It's been here for over a century already. When's the last time they went under this city to change out all of that steel that rusts now, that seeps into the water? That's why I don't drink New Orleans water. I'm barely bathing in it, because it's not good for us.
We've learned some things over these past 20 years, but as we meet at the levees every year, march through New Orleans to Hunter's Field, and fellowship with each other, we affirm that community is infrastructure and joy is our superpower. We confirm that climate justice is racial justice. We don't separate environmental health from mental health or from economic prosperity. It is in our blood to turn our grief into a global movement.
My name is India Carter. I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana, born and raised in Gentilly. I was displaced after Hurricane Katrina, but I returned. I was only 8 during Hurricane Katrina. Not being able to have the say to move back when I wanted to is kind of what deemed me to move back when I was of age, because it was already home. And it doesn't matter where you move after, it never really has that home feeling for you, even with your family there. Having to be basically removed from your home at such a young age, and it's all you ever really knew, it stirred up a lot of trauma. So my father was a stubborn man, so he didn't believe in leaving. So we stayed. And because we stayed, we endured everything that the storm had to give. I remember vividly, my mother was cooking in the kitchen. My dad, he was asking us if we wanted to go to the party, because they had a party 2 streets over. They still had a spacewalk up. They had like tents and everything set up, because they wasn't letting the rain like stop the party. Like for me as a child, it was a normal day. And we just was watching TV, but we wasn't watching the news. Like it was not a thing to, all right, well, it got a storm, we need to be looking at the news, seeing what's going on. It was not a thing. We were watching regular TV, like going about our day, like it was a regular day. It was just raining. And we had neighbors barbecuing with like tents up. We had neighbors barbecuing. My friend, she had an umbrella. She was walking her dog. So it was not as big to us as what it became. Because of Katrina, I seen a lot that I didn't need to see. As far as deceased bodies floating in the water, and it's like no one cared. They're just there. We were taken, I think we was on the roof probably like 3 days, until somebody finally came and got us in like this canoe-looking boat and brought us to a dry land, which was at, I want to say, University of New Orleans. That's why I decided to go to the school, because it impacted my life already. They brought us there, but it was just a group. I'm not gonna say a group, a mass of individuals, everyone confused, just standing outside. And then they left. They didn't stay, from my memory, they didn't say too much on what we was to do after. We was just there. So a lot of the fathers and the men, they broke into the school. That's how we were able to have clothes. It had like snacks and food. That's how we was able to survive. I feel like it was a day. I think we slept overnight. And then they came back. I want to say they had 1 or 2 helicopters, but it's so many people, so it's going to be multiple trips. And everybody wants to get to that front to get on a helicopter to go anywhere but where they're at. So during that time, just in that one night that I remember, the parents, I'm not gonna say they left, but they got us in classrooms. They got us in classrooms and tried to make sure all the kids was in one area. And it was like a fight or flight type of move for them. And they was just trying to make sure everything was safe. But still during that time, a lot of girls were raped. People committed suicide. People were doing drugs. So it was just a lot to see at 8. And that's me at 8. But there was kids younger than me. Like as from my younger brothers, they were 4 and 5. So it was just a lot to see at one time, and not knowing what's going on or how to even process it or what it can even lead to after. So that's how I look at that. That's why I say a sense of trauma, because you don't forget it. You might try to suppress your memory, but it's still gonna come up, especially if you end up in that type of situation again. They made it like Houston was a safe haven, but it was no better than being in New Orleans. For me, it was no better. I'd rather have stayed. After a lot of people were picked up in helicopters from the university, We were taking, I want to say, to the interstate. I can't remember which one. They were taking us to the interstate and they loaded us up on buses. And in our head, we about to go right now. But we sat on a bus for hours, like hours. And it had people with pets and their pets were dying. We probably got there, I want to say around noon, but the bus, it didn't leave till it was dark. It was dark during the time when they finally had us actually like leave. So we were just sitting on the buses. And you didn't want to get off, even though it was hot, you didn't want to get off because now you're going to lose your place. Because there wasn't many buses. So everybody who got placed there from the university, they didn't have a bus to get on. They were outside and they were fighting and fussing to get on the bus. Even though the bus was unbearable to be on, you just don't want to lose your place or not know when the next one is going to come. And when they did started driving us, they only drove us so far. I feel like we was only on the bus for like 20 minutes. And 20 minutes is supposed to be long to a kid. That's how I know we wasn't on there that long. And we got moved to like a charter bus. In the middle of the road, the bus just stopped. Now I look at it as it bring you so far and then go back. We got placed on the charter bus, and the charter bus brought us to Houston. And you kind of went through a processing, I feel like, when we went into the Astrodome in Houston. And by the time we got there, there were no, it's like netted cots. There were no netted cots to sleep on. So in that whole area, that's basically the stadium floor, were filled with net cots and a lot of people who had already got there earlier. But a lot of them was sick, a lot of sick people. People were dying and everything down there. So my father and my mother, and my siblings and I, we just slept in the actual stands. They didn't provide us with anything while I was there. We had stuff from the university that we took with us. So that's how we was able to still have clothes, and they had, it was gift shop stuff. So a lot of the stuff had the school logo and everything on there. But throughout that journey from New Orleans to Houston, we did stop at restaurants. And the restaurants we stopped in, that's where we were able to locate my older brother, because he's my stepbrother, and my older sister. And she actually made her birthday while we were in, because we, after we found them, we got them. And then we continued to go to Houston. She made her birthday sleeping in the stands. So it was just trying to make things, even though it was so chaotic, we was trying to make things normal. So we sang a happy birthday in the stands to her. I believe she had made 13 or 14 that day. It was just trying to make things normal, but it's like your world is falling apart all around you. A lot of parents got separated from their kids. A lot of husband and wives got separated. So it's just who's ever next to you, that's your family or your friend, you just try to hold on to them and get to safety. Because it was hard. It was hard trying to view that. And I wouldn't want to go through that. I want anyone else to go through that again. It was different coming back, like actually living back in the city, because the first thing I wanted to do was go to my old neighborhood and try to find a house. And it looked exactly how it used to on the outside, but I was told that it was destroyed in the inside. It had never been reconstructed, rebuilt. And it wasn't, I want to say it was a middle class neighborhood, but because it wasn't an upper class neighborhood and it didn't have, like, I want to say wealthy people moving back into that neighborhood, it was looked away. So not many people who I grew up with or the adults that I was surrounded moved back to the neighborhood because it was already expensive trying to rebuild everything. And that's how I feel like a lot of people did end up in debt, because You want to go back home, but your home is not, even though it's destroyed, it feel like it's gonna cost more to live there than when you lived there before. Just the rebuilding of everything, as well as for my other family members. It was, I won't say it was like a struggle for them trying to move back into their homes. I know we couldn't move back into ours, but it's for my other family members who really wanted to be back there and wasn't looking to go anywhere else. They went through a lot as far as lawsuits and everything, but that also leads to debt, because it's like your city is against you now, but this is the place you want to be. So I know a lot of people ended up homeless, and there are still people who are homeless because of the situation of Katrina. My degree is in criminal justice because I decided I wanted to be a criminal defense attorney, especially for a lot of things that I've seen, and people being placed in jail for some things they didn't do, are individuals who just needed help but didn't have all the resources, or they didn't have the funds to actually get a lawyer. So even if I had to be a court-appointed lawyer first, that was just the overall goal of trying to help others, because I've seen so many in pain during that time. The city is strong and the heart of the city is still there, but the heart of the city is the people, and many people are not who they used to be because of Hurricane Katrina. We have tourists come here every year for many festivals and different type of events, and they look at it. They don't go to those areas that we know. They go to the tourist attraction areas that it look pretty on the outside, but you don't know the pain of it. Like, they don't stay too long out there in certain areas because of stories they heard. They don't stay too long. They enjoy it. They get drunk, they have a party. But people actually from New Orleans don't go in those tourist areas to have fun. They don't go there. They work there. So it's not the same for us. We have to go other states and other cities to try to find an enjoyment. How tourists view our city is not how we view our city. And I would love to just see my city as a tourist, because I feel like I might see it as I did when I was a youth, because I don't see it as the same. Our streets aren't even fixed. There's still abandoned houses. There's still things that remind you of the past that you probably want to get away from, but it's all still there. And I think that's what a lot of people are still attached to. Still waiting for that search and rescue. They're still waiting for that. They're still waiting for someone to just come and say, I have you, like I'm here for you. There's many people in their head, they're probably still living out Katrina every day. What's gonna be different? We've already been through Katrina, and I feel like they know what to do. It's just a matter of, should we do it? Do we wanna do it? Well, what is it gonna cost to do it? And should we just let it be? Well, a lot of people live, but thousands of people died. Thousands. But because some of those people are not related, not kin, are known to the higher ups, they don't matter. There's graves that's still missing family members. So with that being said, what is a normal day between a person from New Orleans and a person who just visits? It's not the same. For me, I'm not gonna sit around and wait for something to hit again. And I found the peace in moving, and not just keeping my heart and mind in one place. So if I ever have to detach myself from that place, I'm going to be okay.
When Katrina came, I was 23 with the 2-year-old, and I lived in the Iberville on North Robertson, right behind the fish market and the cemetery. I was on the corner. I am a chef and a content creator, and I cook Creole and soul food cuisine on TikTok. And I am currently finishing up my cookbook called Creole and Soul. I spent my entire life in New Orleans, except for some time as a small child, and for the last 5 years, most of my time between Algiers Point, the Ninth Ward, and St. Bernard Parish. My mom stayed out there after she got remarried. When Katrina came, it was immediate racism. It was immediate cops saying we're only helping white people get the hell away from this boat and stuff like that. And so I immediately felt like I was radicalized by that and by all the guns that were pointed to my head, pointed to my child, all the different things that was happening. Because I was walking in water with a 2-year-old right here. And she was getting sick. And we actually stayed outside for a week after Katrina came. They tore down the projects, but if it wasn't for the Iberville, we wouldn't have had nowhere to stay because we went upstairs in the bricks. And then that's where I came back to. That's what was left standing. And then we all went to the convention center. And then there was the chaos that was inside because it was so hot. So we came back outside and slept on the neutral ground for a couple of days. One of those mornings we woke up and there was a dead lady right there beside us. Another morning we woke up and somebody had peed all over the neutral ground, so we were soaked in piss. It was just one thing after another, and I still had a baby to feed, and we were breaking in stores getting potato chips and water. It was so crazy that, and we didn't know what was going on because when we got to Texas, we didn't know the city was flooded. We only knew, I was right here at Iberville, and then we went to we went to the Superdome first, and we had a gun. So they was like, put your guns in the bucket, and we're like, nah, we'll just leave, because what the hell, what is... So we left, and then we walked to the convention center because they were like, hey, there's a ship down there. There's a cruise ship, and they got electricity. So we get down there to the cruise ship. There's no cruise ship, and it's just people. At that time, we stayed a couple of days, and then the buses came, and then we went to Texas. Katrina was not only a curse as far as what it did to us physically, it put us on the world's map, and the world started digesting New Orleans culture to the point where it's been watered down. Everybody has access to it. They're selling king cakes right now. There's a king cake season that you're supposed to sell king cakes. We're losing recipes and we're losing traditions. That's kind of one of the reasons why I have my TikTok page, because I'm trying to keep everybody reminded of what it was like, before. So I actually made it in the New York Times this year in the Black History section because I have been cooking my way through the first cookbook that was authored by a Black Creole chef from New Orleans, Lena Richard. They say Lena Richard. We say Richard. So New Orleans was just voted the best food city in the world, and we have kids that don't know how to make our local traditional cuisine. I feel like it's really important to share these traditions and these cultures that we got from our grandparents and our aunties, because the youth here, they grew up somewhere else, or they're growing up here now, and there's this big rift because maybe their parents were away for 10 or 15 years and so much changed that they never really experienced the real culture of the city. Welcome back to Lena's 1939 Creole Recipes, where I'm cooking my way through the first cookbook written by a Black Creole chef from New Orleans, Lena Richard. Today we have
seem to whisper I love you.
My page is called Bebop Shop, and it's called 1939 Creole Recipes. I've been cooking my way through the first cookbook that was written by a Black Creole woman from New Orleans. These are the backbone of our dishes. It is how we make rice. You boil it like pasta. All of that is in there. People don't, and then when they see me cooking, they're like, why are you washing the rice after? I was like, let me go back and show these people that this is the way we've been doing this for centuries, for decades and decades. I cook duck and odd stuff. I do alligator. I do all types of stuff on there. I do our stuff. It would be great if I would move home if I could afford land and a house. But I can't, not within the city, probably not in Orleans Parish, period, because it's so expensive. The infrastructure is a mess. The streets are a mess. The sewage is a mess. It's always flooding. Everything's always backed up, and the water is constantly encroaching. Because I live in the country now, I come home every 2 to 3 weeks. The water's higher every time I come. Like, and if you wait like a year and come back, like all of St. Bernard Parish is underwater. Like, that water wasn't there when I was a kid. That water was not there. Like, it was a little water here and a little water there. It's water all the way when you're riding through the east now. I don't have a baby picture. I don't have anything. My mama don't have anything. I don't have pictures of my daddy. I had to get all that from people like my family in California. Like, our people that had migrated a long time ago still had pictures, and so I have few and far between, like 7 pictures. But I don't have anything. Like, I had nothing. We had nothing. My mom's upstairs was underwater. By the time I came back to my project, they had cleaned it out. There was nothing in there. They took away everything. So I had to we literally rebuilt from scratch. Had zero, nothing. When I came back, it was 06. 07, 08, I was realizing, hey, something is wrong. And I went to therapy. So I got therapy. And then in therapy, I realized I still have PTSD. To this day, I still have PTSD. Like, I know it, and I know what to recognize, and I know what to think about. So for me, I'm going to go get some help if I need some help. With the economy, I don't think they're looking out for, regular working class and poor people. I think the idea is, okay, get these tourists in. We're going to get these money from these Airbnbs or whatever we're going to do. For me, if I could have a few acres, somewhere and have a house, that would be great. But I think for the city as a whole, stop letting everybody else come in. It was great when we were gatekeeping. It was great when we were doing our own little thing and they didn't understand it. And now we're on a world stage and everybody wants a piece of it, and it's just getting watered down.
We had been to Betsy, we had been to Floyd, we had been to Camille, but when Katrina hit, we knew it was going to be a hurricane. We didn't know the severity of it. We didn't know that we were going to wound up back home in it. We decided that we would leave out on Sunday, thinking that we were going to drive straight to Nashville, Tennessee to see my brother, let him see his mother he hadn't seen in a while, and my grandkids. So we had my 3 grandkids, my cousin Hyman, my mother, and we were driving to Nashville, and we thought we were going to just drive straight through. When it got to be apparent that my mother was so sick prior to getting in the car that the road trip would kill her, we turned around, and on Sunday about 3:30, instead of going home, we went to the Superdome. When we got to the Superdome, the lines were so long, I knew my mother wouldn't be able to stand up in those lines, so I asked a police officer, where could I get her in? So he said, go around to the back of the Superdome. They had what they call special needs set up to take people who are in need of medical attention, as she was. And when we got there, they weren't prepared, so they said, go back home. If we would have known going back home would have resulted in their deaths, then we wouldn't have done it. But we went back home because that's what we do. You either survive in your house, you either hunker down, as they say, but we were going back home with the intentions of leaving.
The city went dark. It went black. When all the lights went out, then I knew I needed to go. We didn't have television. We didn't have no way of knowing what was really actually going on. And what we were getting off the news was pieces of things where people going to the Superdome, and they wasn't saying that the whole city was underwater in the beginning. So we were here when bodies started floating. I'm in the water. I got a staph infection and everything because nobody told us that was in the water. People's bodies floating there. Had been time to leave, but I didn't know that. So we walked out past the water, down to the convention center, got airlifted from there, went to Tennessee, from Tennessee to Atlanta, from Atlanta to Texas, and then back to New Orleans. Like you say, within a year's time.
We were supposed to leave to go to Atlanta by my husband's sister, but his aunt and his uncle worked at 2 of the biggest hotels down, on Canal Street. So he was like, well, we can just go over there until the storm pass over. We're not thinking that it was going to be a catastrophe. So we went to the hotel to stay. Let me see, August the 29th. That morning, early morning, is when Katrina hit, right? So the power and everything went off at the hotel. So with the power and everything going out, they told us that they can no longer house us there because it wasn't sanitary to live there. So they bused us to the Superdome. So we didn't actually go into the Superdome per se. We slept on the outside. We slept there for like maybe that day after Katrina. So the 29th was Katrina. So maybe like the 30th, they brought us over to the Superdome. And then we stayed on the 30th, so maybe like the 31st or something like that. Then that's when the National Guards and everything came in and the buses came and all that kind of stuff. So we didn't stay long, thank God. But it was very, very, very scary. They bused us to Houston. Okay, so we didn't stay at Houston, not even a day. We got there, but my husband knew someone. He saw someone in Houston. And from Houston, they brought us to the airport. And we got inside the airport, and we were going from airline to airline to see which airline would be able to, work with what I had, because I didn't have much. And so it was American Airline that helped us. They took the little money that I did had, and they said that they were, pay the rest or whatever, but we had a layover. So we had a layover in Dallas. Now during that layover, we stood at, I forget what hotel it was, but we stayed at a hotel. And during that time, they was broadcasting everything about Katrina and stuff. And just so happened, we saw the picture of my husband holding my son on the news saying that, that the refugees, because that's what they were calling us then, refugees. From the layover, we went to Atlanta, which where we were supposed to go from the first beginning, where his sister was. We went to Atlanta, and while we were in Atlanta, they gave us a hotel there to stay. So we stayed there for maybe a month. After that month, they gave us housing. Well, after that, I did a whole lot of traveling within that 1 year. I went from Atlanta to, I believe it was, to Austin, from Austin to Houston, from Houston to Texas. Well, from Houston to, not Texas, I'm sorry, from Houston to, St. Francisville. St. Francisville, back to Houston, from Houston to New Orleans. And that was all in the span of a year.
It started on a Saturday because that's when I left. But the day that that Saturday, I had a gun buyback at St. Philip Church in the Ninth Ward with Reverend Johnson and his daughter. So we was doing a gun buyback at the time. So, and then my wife at the time, she was getting ready to pack up to leave and things like that. So we had left that Saturday, and it took us like 20 hours to get to Texas because of the traffic and everything. So, it was my daughter. My oldest daughter, she was pregnant at the time. And I had my baby daughter and also a niece. So we had traveled to Texas, and where we reside in Pasadena, Texas. So we was up there for 3 years. And, during the time, but me having all females, for me, it was just to stay focused, to stay calm for them. And we lived up there I stayed up there for 3 years. It was an experience, a horrific experience. Something new, something different. I always thought about leaving New Orleans and relocating and everything like that. But you know, you always make excuses to do it. But when Katrina came, you had no choice but to make that move. But then at that time, it became what you call survival mode. And I refused to come back at the time because I had 2 young girls. And I know at the beginning of New Orleans, in the process of rebuilding, that everybody in New Orleans at that time had a predator state, because it's kind of like every man for himself now, because we're trying to regroup. And what everybody went through, it was horrific for everyone.
When we actually evacuated the Superdome, there were 5 buses, and around those buses they placed armed guards, and if you didn't have a band on your wrist, you couldn't get on the bus. So fortunately, we were able to get on the bus, and here, me and my granddaughters and some other people that I knew from out the Ninth Ward drove from New Orleans to Lafayette. And when I got to Lafayette, my brother worked for Travel Centers of America. He was the general manager. So I had to leave my granddaughters with their aunties who were actually in Houston at that time, and got on the plane to Nashville. And when I got to Nashville, I told David, my arm hurts too bad. So I literally went from the airport to the hospital, from emergency room to emergency surgery, and they were actually going to cut my arm off, because that's how bad it was. And they actually cultured, this was at Vanderbilt University, this was in Nashville, Tennessee, who I make recognition of the simple fact that Nashville is a place where we wound up. And they're called the volunteer state, and they volunteered. They stepped up to the task of taking in people. But you still had these situations where people felt like we were refugees as opposed to survivors. We were American citizens, we were taxpayers. So the refugee was a word that I didn't like, but refugee was a word that they used, you know, in it. But Nashville provided me a place to actually be, a place to start over again.
They knew that it was a catastrophe that was gonna come. So they should have had it planned better. And people were just trying to survive. They wasn't really looting and you know, all that they were saying, but people were really trying to survive because they didn't have no means of nothing, no means of transportation. You know, they in so many feet of water, and you know, just not knowing of, you know, where they're gonna be at tomorrow, if they're gonna be dead or not, you know. So I feel like the government failed us.
And when I got back to New Orleans, nothing was here. There was no grocery stores like talking about it. There was no jobs to be had. Nothing was open. Nobody was here. We were walking around still trying to figure it out. I left trying to figure it out. I came back and had to try to figure it out. The government dropped the ball, period. The state of Louisiana didn't have a plan, which they should have. How many storms does it take before you get a plan? Bessie and Camille should have taught them what was needed for this city in case it got any worse, in case we got a direct hit, which we still didn't get. Katrina was not a direct hit. That happened after they opened up the levees. You see what I'm saying? So y'all did this to us. Your plan was to wash out the poor neighborhoods and save your precious Canal Street and St. Charles Avenue, where the money was. Some people who had never been homeless found themselves homeless without a place to come back to. What do you do? Who do you turn to when you don't even know where your family at anymore? I've got people that I've never seen anymore, never heard of anymore. I've looked for them online, put their name in all of the bases and all of those things. They just disappeared off the face of the earth, more or less. But you have to go forward. You can't stay there in that place of them being lost. What you do with that? You know? So, and I'm sure that I'm not alone in that people who just lost people didn't get a chance to bury them, did not get a chance to say goodbye, have no clue if they're still alive or if they're dead. And it may be they just have not been able to connect again. Or it may be that they're washed out to sea. They got drowned, they lost their lives. In so many cases, we just don't know.
So I know a lot of our people that was displaced have not had a chance to heal because they were not around like-minded people who shared their experience. So that was one of my primary reasons I helped and worked with him for over these 20 years to help it grow and develop so we can eventually get the March of Katrina second line to a point where everyone could come back or know the date and when it's going to happen so we could come back and heal and meet and greet and talk about people who shared that experience. Because when you think about it, a lot of people have been gone and have never been back, so they had never had a chance to exchange and share that experience with people who've done it. They're living on and moving on with their lives in other places, but the trauma here and the trigger is here, so when you come back here, you're gonna have a trigger when you're in New Orleans that we're not aware of, you know, so because we have so many subliminal triggers that we don't know why we're in the state of mind that we are. I mean, I understand, but everybody doesn't. So that's why we have a lot of anger, a lot of resentment, a lot of hate, because a lot of things have not been dealt with. And Katrina March's second line is a great avenue to continue to grow and to remind people of what happened, to give those people a chance to release and heal in that perspective.
At the end of the day, just, you know, systems failed us. It was a climate disaster worsened by broken systems and bureaucracy and red tape. The people who are on the ground know what we need best, and starting from there and figuring out how do we make this work for our community. You know, we're starting to see more conversations in the arts and culture sectors of the town talking more about climate change, talking about the need for climate action, and really not waiting for someone to come in and save the day, but waiting for someone to come in and be a partner and provide resources for us to actually thrive, not just survive. I want for New Orleans to be a place where climate action doesn't mean survival, that it can mean opportunity for everyone. You know, like there's plenty of work to be done. We have a crumbling infrastructure, and we need to think about how we rebuild, but also who are we rebuilding with? Who's there at the table when we start to rebuild? Because if we're just rebuilding, then who are we rebuilding for? You know, we're again like below sea level. We're a coastal city. We're in a red state. It's not a place where a lot of people want to live these days. And so, you know, figuring out how do we bring people back? How do we attract people who want to be a part of the community, but also like not make it so hard for us to live the day to day.
It's really important to share these traditions and these cultures that we got from our grandparents and our aunties, you know, because the youth here, they grew up somewhere else, or they're growing up here now, and there's this big like rift because maybe their parents were away for 10 or 15 years, and so much changed that they never really experienced the real culture of the city. And so that's why they're on TV faking their accents on TikTok, they're trying to feel more, you know what I'm saying, at home. They're trying to feel something that they've never had really experienced because of Katrina and gentrification and just everything all at one time. The resilience is with the people. Like the Cajun Navy is who saved everybody. It wasn't the army. It was the people with the boats in Louisiana coming up here taking people out of houses. The resilience is with the people. Like that's there. The culture and the spirit of the people is there.
We need one another. That's the biggest thing. And I encourage kids to find a belief. find something inside themselves to believe in, then use that. Let that be enough. In this time, we have to come out and vote. We need to have our voice heard. We need to maintain our own family and our own units, first of all. You can't take care of somebody else if you're not taking care of yourself. So first of all, we gotta heal the family. And they're gonna do everything they can and have been since the beginning of time, tear a family apart. That's just the way the world system is. It's not a state system or a me system or you system, it's a world system. And then we have to heal our government, not their government. We have to know that there's a difference, that the people who we put in office, that's our government. Be careful about who we're putting in office. We need somebody who knows us, who know New Orleans, who grew up here, who know the issues here, who want to fight for those issues.
I'm pretty sure 20 years from now, I'll have kids or a kid, and I'm gonna want them to view where I grew up as a place of warmth. So 20 years from now, I would like to see my city as how I viewed it before Hurricane Katrina.
People want to be left alone. People don't want to commit acts of violence. People don't want to have to go get it back. People just want to be left alone and to live. My sense of justice is the same as yours. Let me be.
2005, too many bled, too many didn't survive. Too many misled, too many didn't have a job. Too many fled, too many thoughts on my mind. All before the age of 9. Yeah, dad alive, grams alive. Community supervised, family ties. Reality clear as day, not televised. To my